husband threw me out after believing his daughter's lies. 3 weeks later, he asked if I'd reflected. Instead, I handed him divorce papers. His daughter lost it. My name is Elena Ward, I'm 34. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. The night he threw me out, the house was cold enough to echo. I stood there on the porch, suitcase by my feet, while Grant, my husband of 6 years, stared through me like I was a stranger who'd overstayed her welcome. She said you hit her, he'd muttered, voice low, controlled. That you've been jealous since day one. She was Tessa, his 20-year-old daughter from his first marriage, the girl who'd once called me mom until I became inconvenient. I remember the sound of my own laugh, hollow, disbelieving. Grant, you've known me for a decade. But trust doesn't always die with noise. Sometimes it dies in silence, in the way someone refuses to meet your eyes. He didn't ask for proof, didn't ask for my side, just handed me my bag and said, take some time, reflect, as if betrayal was a mirror I could adjust until the image became flattering. For 3 weeks, I slept on a friend's couch, scrolling through Tessa's carefully curated lies online, captions like healing with dad 2 hearts, and toxic people finally out of our lives. Every like, every comment, was a knife disguised as validation. But instead of rage, something steadier grew in me. Resolve. I wasn't the villain of her story, but I was done auditioning for the role of the hero in his. So when Grant finally texted, "Can we talk? I think we both need closure." I agreed. And when he opened the door expecting tears, I handed him the manila envelope instead. "Here's my reflection," I said. The divorce papers landed in his hand like a verdict. And behind him, Tessa's face went white. Tessa's voice broke the silence first. "What is this supposed to be?" she snapped, crossing her arms like a child who'd just been denied dessert. I didn't even look at her. My eyes stayed on Grant. He'd gone pale, his jaw tight, his voice caught somewhere between shock and embarrassment. "Elena," he started. "This isn't necessary. We just need to talk, not." I cut him off. "We talked, remember? 3 weeks ago, when you stood in your driveway and watched me walk away with a suitcase. You said I should reflect." He swallowed. "You're overreacting." "Overreacting." I laughed, a sound too sharp to be humor. "You threw your wife out because your daughter couldn't handle sharing oxygen with another woman. You believed her without question." Tessa rolled her eyes. "Because you did push me." I turned to her finally, my tone steady. "I brushed past you in the hallway after you called me a freeloader who married your dad for his house. If that's assault, then half the world's guilty." Her glare faltered. "You twisted everything," she said, voice cracking. Grant looked between us, confused, defensive, trapped. "Stop it, both of you. This isn't helping." I nodded. "You're right. That's why I'm leaving." He blinked. "You can't just." "I can," I said. "You already taught me how." I turned toward the door, but paused. "Oh, and Grant, you might want to check your bank notifications. I already moved my half. I won't be funding the lifestyle of someone who believes gossip over truth." His face fell. "You wouldn't." "I already did." Behind him, Tessa's voice cracked into a shout. "You're ruining everything." I smiled, not cruelly, just calmly. "No, Tessa. I'm ending it." As I stepped outside, the cold air hit my face like a second chance. I didn't slam the door. I didn't look back. Because sometimes the loudest revenge isn't destruction, it's dignity. And that day, I learned that silence can sound a lot like power. I drove until the city lights blurred into a string of gold and red, like my past fading in the rearview. My phone buzzed the entire time, unknown numbers, blocked calls, voicemails stacking up like guilt I didn't order. I didn't listen. Not yet. I rented a small apartment by the lake, a space with no history, no ghosts, no framed photos of a family pretending to love each other. The first night, I slept on the floor with nothing but a blanket and quiet. And for the first time in years, I didn't wake up anxious. The next morning, I opened my laptop, logged into the joint account, and saw it, $38,000 still sitting untouched. I'd moved my half before leaving, but Grant hadn't. Typical. He thought I'd come crawling back for closure, not clarity. So I withdrew my half legally, attached the signed separation draft, and left a note in his email. Transparency. Half withdrawn as entitled. The rest is yours, and hers. Use it wisely. That was my closure. A week later, I got a message from Claire, one of Grant's coworkers who'd always liked to gossip. Girl, I don't know what's going on, but his daughter's been posting weird stuff about you, like you stole from them. I sighed, unsurprised. I checked Tessa's feed, and there it was. A photo of me from our wedding day, captioned, "Some women only marry for money. Some forget who gave them everything." The comments were brutal. All lies she'd spun so often she probably believed them herself. But I didn't comment, didn't defend myself. Instead, I called my lawyer. "You still have the text she sent me last year?" I asked. "The ones where she bragged about managing her dad's business card?" "Those," I said. He smiled through the phone. "You're planning something?" "Not revenge," I said softly. "Just balance. Because the thing about lies? They don't need to be shouted down. They just need the truth, whispered in the right ear at the right time. And I knew exactly where to whisper it. 2 days later, I made an appointment at Grant's company. Unannounced, unscheduled, but perfectly timed. When I walked into that glass building in my tailored navy dress, the receptionist froze. My name still carried weight there. Everyone knew Mrs. Ward, the supportive wife who'd hosted every fundraiser, who'd once been the face of his success. Not anymore. Grant looked up from his desk when I stepped in. His eyes widened, then narrowed. "Elena, what are you doing here?" I set a small folder on his desk. "Delivering what your daughter left out of her story." He didn't touch it. "If this is about money." "It's not," I said, cutting him off. "It's about facts." Inside the folder were screenshots, Tessa's texts bragging about using his corporate credit card for personal emergencies. Spa days, designer bags, concert trips, over $7,000 in unauthorized charges, all under his name. He flipped through the pages, face draining of color. This can't be right. "It's all verified," I said calmly. "And before you ask, no, I didn't leak it. I'm just giving you what you refuse to see." He stared at the evidence, his hands trembling. "Why would she do this?" I met his eyes. "Because she learned it from you. You both believed lies were easier than accountability." His lips parted, no words coming out. "And Grant," I added softly. "If you want to fix anything, start by fixing her." "I'm already fixed." As I turned to leave, Tessa walked in, just in time to see the papers spread across his desk. Her confident smirk faltered. "Dad, what's that?" Grant didn't answer. I didn't stay to watch. I didn't need to. Outside, the wind carried a strange sense of symmetry. For once, truth wasn't something I had to defend. It was something I delivered. And that silence, that heavy, awkward silence left behind in that office, was louder than any revenge could ever be. Because sometimes, justice doesn't explode. It lands quietly and changes everything. By evening, my phone started lighting up again, but this time, it wasn't from Grant. It was from numbers I didn't recognize. Colleagues. Old family friends. Even one from his accountant. Apparently, word had spread faster than I ever intended. Tessa's shopping spree was no longer a secret. Screenshots had circulated through office whispers and board meetings. By nightfall, her name was trending locally. Executive's daughter misuses company funds. I hadn't shared a thing. Someone inside had. Karma had just picked the right assistant to overhear the right conversation. I sat on my balcony, sipping tea, watching the storm unfold from a safe distance. The rain started softly, fitting. It sounded like closure in liquid form. My phone buzzed again. This time it was an email from Grant. Subject, "You won." Body, "I didn't know she'd done this." I didn't want to believe it. "You were right. About her." "About me. I'm sorry." I read it twice, then closed it. I didn't reply. Forgiveness wasn't the currency I was trading in anymore. The next morning, I stopped by the diner near my new apartment, the kind of place where no one cared about headlines, only coffee refills. The waitress, a woman in her 50s with tired eyes, smiled. "First time here?" "Yeah," I said, starting over. She poured my coffee and nodded. "That's the best kind of beginning." As I stirred the sugar, I realized how right she was. For the first time in years, I wasn't somebody's wife, stepmother, or villain. I was just Elena, a woman who'd survived the storm and learned how to build her own shelter. When I got home, I opened my laptop and began a new file. Reflections, the cost of silence. I wasn't writing for him, or for her. I was writing for every woman who'd been blamed for someone else's insecurity. And as I typed, I smiled, because this time, the story was entirely mine. The weeks that followed were eerily quiet, the kind of silence that feels earned, not empty. I'd traded luxury dinners and tense family gatherings for peace, and every morning it greeted me like sunlight through clean glass. Then, one afternoon, an email arrived from an unexpected sender, Tessa Grant. Subject line: "Can we talk?" I hovered over it for a full minute before opening it. "I know you probably hate me. I would too. I messed up more than you know. Dad's furious. He froze my accounts. I don't have school money. I shouldn't have lied about you. I just wanted him to love me like he loved you. I'm sorry." The words blurred for a moment, not from tears, but from disbelief. For once, her tone wasn't sugar-coated or cruel. It was real. I read it twice before replying. "I don't hate you, Tessa. But your apology isn't for me. It's for yourself. Learn from it. And stop measuring your worth by how much someone else loves you." That mistake almost broke us both. Then I hit send. No anger. No lingering pain. Just truth. That night, I sat by the window with a cup of chamomile tea and thought about Grant. How trust dies in pieces, not all at once. How love without accountability is just performance. A text came from Claire again. Word is, Grant's stepping down for a while. They're saying he's taking time to reflect. I smiled faintly at the word, reflect. The same word he'd used when he threw me out. Now it finally meant something. I closed my laptop, exhaled, and realized the most powerful thing I'd done wasn't the divorce, or the exposure, or the silence. It was staying human when they tried to make me hard. Because survival without softness isn't strength, it's just armor. And I'd finally learned the difference. A month later, the city had shifted seasons, cooler air, slower nights, quieter thoughts. I'd started running again, the kind of early morning runs where the world still feels half asleep, forgiving. Each stride loosened something I didn't know I was still carrying. One morning, as I ran along the lake trail, I saw Grant sitting on a bench by the water. Alone. No suit, no phone, no facade. Just him, smaller somehow, stripped of the arrogance that used to fill a room. He saw me before I could turn away. "Elena," he said softly, "can we talk?" I stopped, caught between caution and curiosity. "About what?" He exhaled, rubbing his temples. "You were right. About everything." I believed her, because it was easier than believing I'd failed as a father. "I'm sorry for what I did to you." The words hung there, fragile, unsure if they belonged to the same man who'd once told me to reflect. "I don't need your apology," I said quietly. "But I'm glad you found the courage to give it." He nodded slowly. "Tessa's doing therapy. She's trying. She said you wrote back to her." "I did," I said. "She needed to know her worth doesn't depend on you, or me." Grant's eyes glistened. "You're stronger than I ever gave you credit for." "I always was," I replied. "You just didn't look close enough." He tried to smile, but it collapsed into something like regret. "Do you hate me?" I looked out at the water, rippling under the morning light. "No," I said finally. "I just don't need you anymore." We sat there in silence for a minute, not enemies, not lovers, just two people who'd stopped pretending. Then I stood up, brushed the sand off my shoes, and said, "Take care of yourself, Grant." As I jogged away, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt done. Because closure doesn't always come wrapped in revenge. Sometimes it just walks away without looking back. 3 months later, I stood in a sunlit community hall filled with the hum of small beginnings. On the wall hung a banner, "Empower Her, Women Rebuilding After Betrayal." It was my project, a support initiative I'd quietly started, funded by what used to be our joint savings. Every woman who walked through that door had a story like mine. Gaslighting disguised as love, loyalty twisted into leverage, silence mistaken for grace. And every week, I watched them rediscover what I had, that dignity, once claimed, never needs defending. Tessa showed up once. She waited until the room emptied, then approached me slowly. Her hair was tied back, her voice softer. "I heard about this place," she said. I think I want to help." I studied her for a moment. The old me would have hesitated, weighed trust like currency. The new me simply nodded. "Then start by listening." She smiled faintly. "That's fair." As she joined the cleanup crew, I caught my reflection in the window. Not the broken woman standing on a porch months ago, but someone who'd rebuilt her life without permission. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I sat by the lake again. Grant's bench was empty now, the water still. I reached into my bag, pulled out a folded note, the first draft of my speech for an upcoming conference, and read the closing lines aloud to no one in particular. We spend years trying to be the version of ourselves that others can accept. But healing isn't about acceptance. It's about recognition, knowing who you are, even when they refuse to see it. I smiled. The wind carried the words away, like confession. Then I whispered, almost laughing, "Reflect on that, Grant." Evan's voice echoed behind me. "Mom, come on. You promised ice cream." I turned, grinning. "Yeah, baby. Let's go." And as we walked home hand in hand, I realized peace doesn't arrive with fanfare. It arrives when you stop fighting for space in someone else's story and finally start living your own.